Hello and welcome to Tinfoil Tidbits episode 5. This is a show I primarily do for the subscribers of this channel because chances are no one's going to search and find this kind of a title. And it's based on all of the feedback I get in the comment sections, ones that I feel like maybe other people haven't heard about. I get a lot of comments on various videos, like some I don't really bother with, but others, if it's something that's really good, because I have my phone set to push notifications for as many comments as possible, but my phone doesn't seem to send me every comment. But the ones that I do, that the YouTube app advertises to me on my phone, I try to keep the ones that stand out to me and then share them, especially if they're good. Obviously, I couldn't possibly share them all, but these are a few of them, and also the rest are topics that I don't feel like making an entire video for. You could check the other Tinfoil Tidbits episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4 before this. I'll put a link in the description below of the playlist. But let's get to it. All right, Tinfoil Tidbit number 1. This was a great comment and a food for thought. This is probably one of like my top 25 favorite comments I've seen because it really demonstrated comprehension of the subject matter and offered something to think about that I hadn't known. So Dat50GO said, dude, you could be onto something. If you watch that Netflix documentary called Blackfish about the killer whales, by the way, a friend of mine watched that episode, and my wife likes sea mammals as well, and she's seen it. I haven't seen it. But anyway, if you've seen the documentary called Blackfish about the killer whales and dolphins being used to perform shows and whatnot, some dolphins and killer whales would be depressed and kill themselves by drowning. They were depressed because they missed the free world. So what the humans did was they would only capture the animals, have them mate, then release them and keep their offspring. The offspring would then love happily. I think he meant the offspring would then live happily ever after, thinking that was the only world, not knowing it really wasn't. I feel we are those offspring. There is a world beyond this one. I mean, we did wake up, right? Where were we just at prior to waking? We're not humans. Humans is a name for these bodies as a car is the name to an automobile. Our conscious, which is ourselves, leaves these bodies during what some refer to as sleeping. What is that really? Never believe what someone else tells you. Open your own mind by doing the research. Nice work. The concept there that is like a mind-blowing concept is they captured these creatures, the dolphins and the whales, had them mate, released them, and kept the offspring, and the offspring didn't know the difference. That is something to think about. And this was on the continents after the ice wall, the Antarctic ice wall. It was kind of like a flat earth video. It's got over 100,000 views on the channel. This was my favorite one. It may not be the best one, but it's my favorite just because it gave me something to think about. Tinfoil Tidbit 2, McCready Solar Challenger. So I think it was on one of my Grunch of Giants Buckminster Fuller videos. Someone mentioned the McCready Solar Challenger, and it was a solar-powered electric aircraft designed by Paul McCready's AeroVironment. What a great name, AeroVironment. The aircraft was designed as an improvement on the Gossamer Penguin, so that's another airplane to look up, which in turn was a solar-powered variant of the human-powered Gossamer Albatross. It was powered entirely by the photovoltaic cells on its wing and stabilizer without even reserve batteries. Wow. And was the first such craft capable of long-distance flight. In 1981, it successfully completed a 163-mile demonstration flight from France to England. And so once I started looking this up, and unfortunately I didn't prepare the slides for all the other solar planes. Like once you start, because I have that Wikipedia rabbit hole playlist of videos that I made. And basically when you go on Wikipedia to look something up like this that you haven't heard of before, you then end up losing like an hour. So I lost like an entire Saturday morning looking at all these different solar planes that were made. And it all happened between like 1978 and 1985. There was like, and that's also during the era of when Buckminster Fuller was still alive. And a lot of solar power stuff, a lot of robotics. I talk on this channel a lot about where did all the robots go? Where did the AI go? Because it was a big deal in the 80s. And all these alternative energy, free energy, clean energy, the world of the future, all that stuff was commonplace. It was always talked about. And even Buckminster Fuller, I think in the 70s, came out with a thing called the Design Decade. And he said if we work 10 years to build this design decade that he blueprinted with a few other guys, then we would, in just 10 years, if we worked hard for 10 years, we'd create this society where everybody would have the lifestyle of a billionaire, and it would just be like pretty much an automated society or an advanced society where we wouldn't have to pay for things all the time because everything would just be supremely abundant. Fuller talks about how there's enough for everybody and a lot of everything for everybody, and it's just a small amount of people that want to keep things the way they are. And we could have a much better existence if we just release the technology that's out there. So look up the solar powered planes, and I saw like a 98 one flew, I think, across the ocean, or maybe it flew across the whole world. So there's a lot of these solar planes out there, and it's from the 20th century. We're in the 21st century. We barely hear about this kind of stuff anymore. So I'm looking to make a revival of that spirit that was there at the very end of the 70s, the beginning of the 80s, going into the 90s, of just engineering and finding better ways to improve society. It's like everybody just makes apps now and like APIs and things for the computer, and not that much physical engineering is taking place anymore. But we need these solar powered vehicles. We need alternative energy. We need all that stuff. So let's get a revival of that going on. And just to show you how this rabbit hole goes, so as I was getting the B-roll for all that, showing you Buckminster Fuller, I noticed an autofill of Buckminster Fuller map, and I'm like, all right, what kind of thing did Bucky come up with for a map? And now this throws the whole this puts flat Earth and sphere Earth to shame, and you have geodesic Earth, or whatever this thing is that he came up with. He patented it too. So this part of the video, if people see this may set the whole flat Earth sphere thing on its head with this third-party option. Amazing. This just literally fell in my lap. And if you want to look it up, it's called the Dymaxion map. Fuller he named a lot of things: the Dymaxion car, the Dymaxion room. He had a bunch of Dymaxion invention products that he made. Yeah, so let's just read the Wikipedia article here on what Dymaxion is. Dymaxion is a term that Buckminster Fuller associated with much of his work, prominently his Dymaxion house and Dymaxion car, just like I said. Dymaxion, a portmanteau, I guess that's a different word for acronym, a portmanteau of the words dynamic, maximum, and tension. Dymaxion, wow. Sums up the goal of his study: maximum gain of advantage from minimal energy input. I think he also came up with the word synergy. Like if you've never heard of Buckminster Fuller in your life, man, he's like, you gotta spend time on some Fuller. He had this thing with acronyms and these portmanteaus. He used to invent words, and the guy is awesome. He gave away all of his inventions. But anyway, a name was needed for the display of Fuller's first architectural model, later to be known as the Dymaxion House at the Marshall Field's department store in Chicago. To create the name, wordsmith Waldo Warren was hired by Marshall Fields and spent 2 days listening to Fuller, getting a feel for his idiosyncratic use of language. And let me tell you, it is idiosyncratic. Later playing with the syllables typical of Fuller's speech until he and Fuller agreed on the word Dymaxion. And then Fuller used the word for many of his inventions during the decades to follow, including the Dymaxion house, the Dymaxion deployment unit, the Dymaxion car, and the Dymaxion world map. Dymaxion also came to describe a polyphasic sleep schedule he followed, consisting of 4 30-minute naps throughout the day. Fuller eventually renamed his elaborate journal, a highly specific, highly detailed self-documentation of his life, as the Dymaxion Chronophile. So this tidbit is learn about Buckminster Fuller if you didn't already know. I didn't even plan on that tidbit. This one here is Tinfoil Tidbit 3. Actually, we're going to make it Tinfoil Tidbit 4 because Tinfoil Tidbit 3 was the Buckminster Fuller Dymaxion thing that I hadn't planned on. So this is Tinfoil Tidbit 4. RAAMB Slider. And I guess somebody posted this as a comment on one of my Flat Earth videos before I made my Flat Earth channel. So I looked it up, the RAAMB Slider. It's got a, computer graphic here of the Earth that I guess represents the Earth. I think people look at this and think it's real, but I mean, look, there's an outline of the continents. It's neat though for the overlays and different imagery that you could pull up on here, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they were pasting this as proof or that I should look at the RAAMB Slider. I'm not sure what I was supposed to learn from the RAAMB Slider other than pretty neat graphics. That's cool. The name RAAMB Slider was cool enough for me to look up. All right, Tinfoil Tidbit 5, quantum suicide. Someone posted, hey, look up quantum suicide. Quantum immortality refers to the subjective experience of surviving quantum suicide regardless of the odds. I like the name, quantum suicide. In quantum mechanics, quantum suicide is a thought experiment originally published independently by Hans Moravec in 1987 and Bruno Marchal in 1988 and independently developed further by Max Tegmark in 1998. It attempts to distinguish between the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics and the Everett many worlds interpretation by means of variation of the Schrodinger's cat thought experiment from the cat's point of view. Quantum immortality refers to the subjective experience of surviving quantum suicide regardless of the odds. Okay. Tachyon Telephone, Tinfoil Tidbit number 6. So I learned this term. I don't remember if I covered it in the video I did on Tomorrowland, the movie, but the Tachyon Telephone was a big part of the movie. It was like the technology that they could see into the past with. So a tachyonic anti-telephone is a hypothetical device in theoretical physics that could be used to send signals into one's own past, also known as the Tolman's paradox. A device capable of telegraphing into the past was later also called the tachyonic anti-telephone by Gregory Benford and others. Now, this also made me think of if you were on another planet that was 5 light years away and had a strong enough telescope that could see the surface of the Earth, would you be seeing the year 2013? Now, I made this video like back in 2010 asking that. Because anytime I heard about like light speed and light years, I'm like, all right, well, if it's 5 light years away and you could teleport yourself there and then look back at the Earth with a high enough powered telescope, could you see 5 years into the past of Earth? And I do that to flip because they say, when you look into the sky, you're looking into the past. And I'm like, all right, well, cool. So that's what those stars look like, years ago. What if we reversed it? Could we then see the past of the Earth? All right, Tinfoil Tidbit, I think 7. So if you ask Google, who was the last president to pay off the national debt? The answer is Andrew Jackson. On January 8, 1835, all the big political names in Washington gathered to celebrate what President Andrew Jackson had just accomplished. A senator rose to make the big announcement, "Gentlemen, the national debt is paid." That was the one time in U.S. history when the country was debt-free. Now, I looked this up because I was reading a while back the book The Unseen Hand by Ralph Epperson, subtitle The Introduction to the Conspiratorial View of History. And it said in the book that Andrew Jackson was the last guy to pay off the national debt, but he didn't just pay it off as like just a cute little thing that he did. The way the book said was that Andrew Jackson was hell-bent on paying it off because he was against central banks. And the book is suggesting that all of American history is against the central banks. It points to 1792 as when the first 20-year charter for the bank took place. And then 20 years after that is the War of 1812. Coincidentally, it was probably over the bank because the bank got renewed for another 20 years. 20 years after that is 1832. That's the election of Andrew Jackson. And Andrew Jackson did things. He had one of his employees withdraw all the money from the federal bank and deposited them into all individual state national banks or something like that. This book, Unseen Hand, you got to read it. It's one of the best history books of American history you could read. And that's where I learned about this. And then I typed it into Google just to see if the book was true or not. And sure enough, Andrew Jackson, the last time we paid off the debt was in 35? Man. And now it's 20 trillion. All right, Tinfoil Tidbit 8, I think. This was a comment. Someone posted narco dollars for beginners. Narco dollars for beginners. How the money works in the illicit drug trade by Catherine Austin Fitts. www.narconews.com, aka Narco Dollars for Dummies. And there's a great bibliography at the end. That was a comment. And Catherine Austin Fitts, she's one of my favorite people to watch. I haven't watched her lately, but if you've never experienced Catherine Austin Fitts, you haven't lived. So make sure you look up Catherine Austin Fitts if you haven't already. All right, Tinfoil Tidbit 9. History repeats itself? When? We often hear about history repeating itself, but I never hear any specific examples. Sure, there are a few, but this phrase, history always repeats itself, is repeated so often that you would think there was an abundance of examples. You should actually try this out. Ask people, hey, history repeats itself, but when? Okay, yeah, World War I, World War II, but that's not really history repeating itself. It's just two wars. But I did read The Lucifer Principle by Howard Bloom years ago, in the late 90s, maybe the early 2000s. And Bloom came up with a list of characteristics of the fall of all great empires. So maybe that's the history repeating itself. But if history does continuously repeat itself, then is that evidence of a larger conspiracy? The Architect in Matrix Reloaded kind of mentions that they've destroyed and rebuilt civilizations, I think 7 times. What are these events? But more importantly, how and why do they perpetually repeat themselves? And the next time someone says that to you, say, okay, but why and how? How and why did that happen? Instead of just dooming ourselves, we're stupid mankind, we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes we've done for millennia. Let's say, all right, but how and why exactly is this happening, and how can we prevent history from repeating itself again? So, yeah, we almost should have is history repeating itself check all the time. All right, Tinfoil Tidbit 10, Electric Universe Theory. So now this first is the opposition, and then we'll do the pro. So the anti says that electric universe is an umbrella term that covers various pseudo-scientific cosmological ideas built around the claim that the formation and existence of various features of the universe can be better explained by electricity and magnetism than by gravity alone. As a rule, electric universe is usually touted as a ether-based theory with numerous references to tall tales from mythology. However, the exact details and claims are ambiguous, lack mathematical formalism, and often vary from one delusional crank to the next. So yeah, name calling, that's not cool. But anyway, that was the opposition. Now the pro from their actual website is the electric universe theory argues that electricity plays a more important role in the universe than is generally accepted. And when I say generally accepted, I guess they assume that that it's the general accepted theory of gravity or something like that. As a theory, it offers explanations of various natural and astrophysical phenomena, some of which it claims are better understood without the need for various ad hoc explanations. As with any theory, the electric universe makes predictions that have been tested and is published in both peer-reviewed papers and popular books. The electric universe theory is interdisciplinary, integrating and supporting subjects as diverse as the science, astronomy, geology, physics with the soft sciences such as ancient history and comparative mythology. And then they're even self-aware, perhaps not surprisingly, the electric universe has also become the target of pseudo-skeptics whose criticisms have consisted of ad hominems, just like I said, misunderstanding, misrepresentation, and labeling as pseudoscience. Through the 90s, I remember some of my science teachers tried to talk about electric universe theory, and they all kind of questioned gravity as well, and often spoke of the ether. Electric universe theory was reintroduced to me at the Flat Earth International Conference of 2017 in North Carolina. All right, Tinfoil Tidbit 11. Someone posted a long comment. It had 3 names, Julian Heimer, Mospelheim, and Alfheim. And this was on, again, a comment on the continents after the Antarctic ice wall. And so when I looked it up, it showed the 9 worlds of Norse mythology. So I'm going to watch that video at some point because I'd like to hear about these things. It's not saying that I'm buying the mythology, but it's fun to listen to it because it introduces concepts. And I'm like a concept hunter. I like to just put ideas in my mind so that along the way, it helps me understand other things. A lot of people want to be told what to believe. And I'm like, I don't know what to believe, but it's good to have ideas. All right, Tinfoil Tidbit 12. I don't remember what this one was about. Someone left me a comment it said Encyclopedia Dome 1934. I don't even know what that meant. When I looked it up, it showed this 1934 photo dome of the Rock, showing Dome of the in Jerusalem. So if anybody was the one that left that comment, elaborate on that in the comments below, because I failed to take good notes, and it's been a while. Tinfoil Tidbit 13. How many billionaires are in the United States? So I looked it up in the Google. There are 540 billionaires in the United States with a combined net worth of $2.399 trillion, according to our 2016 list of the world's richest people. So there's 50 states and 540 billionaires. So there's 100. Is that 100 billionaires per state or 10? 540 divided by 50. Okay, 10. Okay, so 10 billionaires per state on average. And Tinfoil Tidbit 14. How many billionaires in the world? There are over 1,500 billionaires worldwide. Here are the 14 countries where the world's richest people live. There are 1,542 billionaires in the world, according to a new report by UBS. More than 560 billionaires live in the United States, the most of any country, and they control the most wealth. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not implying anything by this. It's just interesting statistics. Tinfoil Tidbit 16, Fox News UFO program. I'm just going to show you some pictures that I snapped as I was walking past the TV set that had Fox News on the day of the, I don't know if it was Tom DeLonge, but some kind of UFO info came out a couple months or weeks or months ago. Tom DeLonge. Ended in 2012. Pentagon spokesman says the UFO program ended in 2012. Pentagon spokesman says the UFO program ended in 2012. Pentagon secretly set up the UFO program. Report. Pentagon secretly set up UFO program. And here they are. Yeah. Report. Pentagon secretly set up the UFO program. 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 All right, Tinfoil Tidbit 16. Now this one is because, you hear a lot of stuff about RF exposure, cell phones, that cause brain cancer. Is the 5G, WiMAX or whatever, 5G going to bake all of our brains and let them program our brain? Well, I was looking at this ham radio license manual. I'm not saying that this is true or false, but this is what they say in the book. RF exposure. In recent years, there has been a lot of discussion about whether there are health and safety hazards from exposure to electromagnetic radiation, EMR. Many studies have been done at both power line frequencies, 50 and 60 hertz, and RF, both shortwave and mobile phone frequencies. No link has been established between exposure to low-level EMR and health risks, including those frequencies used by amateurs. As discussed earlier, RF radiation is not the same as ionizing radiation. Okay, so RF radio frequency radiation is not the same as ionizing radiation from radioactivity because radio frequencies are not nearly high enough to cause an electron to leave the atom to ionize. At these relatively low frequencies, RF energy is non-ionizing radiation. All right. Nevertheless, even in the absence of evidence that RF fields pose a health risk, it is prudent to avoid unnecessary exposure to high levels of RF. The FCC regulations set limits on the maximum permissible exposure, MPE, from radio transmitters of any sort. All right, so you can read the rest on screen here. I'm not trying to tell you that RF is safe or not safe. It's like 5G maniacs gone wild. It's not that, I don't know if 5G is healthy or safe or dangerous to our health, but there's a lot of people out there just repeating information that they don't, it's not like they have any kind of background in electromagnetics or anything, or radio frequencies or cell phones. And, you know, it seems like a lot of disinfo is getting spread, and disinfo on both sides, saying it's good, saying it's bad. I don't know. I don't think most people know. I think people just know what they've heard, but, you know, we should try to learn about some of this stuff. Like, I'm talking about a lot of stuff I don't know about, but I'm not like telling you this is what's happening. I'm just saying, hey, this is cool things to think about. So that's that. This ham radio guide is kind of interesting. It's a certification thing. All right, Tinfoil Tidbit 17. As I was creating the PowerPoint for this was advertised. Turn on intelligent services to let PowerPoint automatically create more impactful slides for you. Intelligent services work across all Office apps to help you be more productive. To provide intelligent services, Office needs to be able to collect your search terms and document content. Yeah, well, I mean, they're probably already doing that anyway, but I'm not going to consent to it on purpose. All right, well, that ends Tinfoil Tidbits episode 5. I intended this to be 5 minutes, and it turned into 26 minutes. So if you made it this far, drop a comment. Let me know, is this show useful? Because I want to do things that are useful from here on out, because I have so many projects going. I don't want to waste my time or your time. Do you derive any value from this kind of an episode where quarterly I kind of collect all the things that didn't make it into a full episode and just drop something like this? Is the length too long? Did anybody make it this far? So do you like this or not? I mean, I'm not going to do this all the time, just periodically, because I write notes down and I'm like, all right, I don't really want to turn that into a whole video, but I'll throw it into something like Tinfoil Tidbits. I'm still going to make these, but I'm just curious to know if people enjoy this or not. And what was your favorite Tinfoil Tidbit? You know, because I hope that I'm introducing something new. Like, when I make my content, I try to introduce something that hasn't been put out there before. I don't want to just repeat the same old conspiracy theory. Oh, you know what? I have another Tinfoil Tidbit. Let me get my paperwork. Stand by. No, you know what? I'm going to save that for Tinfoil Tidbit episode 6. And looks like I'm already developing material for it already. I was looking for my notes before doing this one, and my primary stack of notes I missed out on. So that'll be in Tinfoil Tidbit 6. Just drop me some notes in the comments. Was anything new information, anything strike you? I hope the part about Andrew Jackson paying off the national debt is at least like, wow, okay, I didn't know that. I mean, and if you did, then that's awesome too. Where did you learn it? So yeah, that's Tinfoil Tidbits. I'm always trying to introduce something new that's not covered. Because if I see it covered, I'm like, well, someone else covered it. Why would I just do the same thing someone else did? I like to be original. Other note is, if you did make it this far, check out the primary channel of my channel and look on the side, because I have other channels now. I have a Flat Earth channel, a cryptocurrency channel, and I just began Beyond the Harmony, which is a Bone Thugs and Harmony podcast I do with Cartoon from Northern Lights Nation, a.k.a. Cecil West. And I think I have a couple other channels there. So I'm trying to split the content out. Oh, and also I removed the Earthbound. Nobody seemed to care about the Earthbound stuff. So I moved the Earthbound, and it'll be released one episode per day on my Technuba channel. On Technuba, I do tech reviews, and now I think I'll do the video game stuff, because the audience for this channel doesn't seem to care too much about that, and I'm not trying to push stuff that you guys don't want to see. I want to give you what you want, because otherwise I'll put it on the targeted channel that the material may be more appropriate for. Anyway, as always, I appreciate you as a subscriber. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.